I'm bored. Let's see if Eric July understands the English language. All right, so here's the most recent video from Eric. It's titled Race and Original Characters the Left Pretends to Misunderstand. Eric, I would say you pretend to misunderstand. I would say that's you, specifically you. Maybe not everybody who's a libertarian or on the right, but I would say you pretend to misunderstand this. And in this video, he's going to show you just how ignorant he is to the things that he talks about. It's a very short video. It's only like 4 minutes and some change long. Let's see how much of this video is about what he's talking about. Here we go. Let's go.
Now, if you've been following me, you know I've spoke about this a countless amount of times. A lot of videos that I used to do on YouTube was talking about tokenization, what some call maybe blackwashing,
You've incorrectly talked about tokenization. You've gotten it wrong multiple times. We talked about this. You do not understand on a fundamental level what a token actually is. And I don't know if it's on purpose, like you know that you're wrong, but you're just trying to continue to push this narrative, or if you just don't understand and you've never bothered to look it up. I'm not really sure which one it is. Maybe your brain has been infested by the people that you hang around with over on FNT. That's always a possibility.
Taking these characters that are classically or have been classically portrayed in one way, and they swap them, and oftentimes it's for social or political reasons. But there was
proof of that. That is your claim. Now, in order to substantiate your claim, you have to provide evidence of that. But you're not. You will see, if this is your first time watching a video of mine, I talk about this quite often, that these guys don't ever really provide any evidence of their claims, meaning that their claims don't hold water at all. If you cannot provide some sort of evidence for a claim, then that claim becomes nothing. It evaporates. And that's what happens with a lot of the content creators in this space. Lots of claims, no evidence.
There's a post that I see that came from Viz Media. There's been a lot of conversations being had here, and I wanted to chime in on it. Let's just get right into it. If you guys can see it here, you'll see that Viz.
By the way, in word here, sorry, I forgot to mention, because I watched the first minute of this, and I knew this was coming. My bad. N-word warning.
Made an announcement on October 17th. It says, being mixed race in Japan, like Kazubi, means facing daily trials of racism, microaggressions, and otherness. This is a journey of resilience, hope, and the search for coexistence. Half is More, Volume 1 by Yoiko Fujimi. Now,
so before we even dive into this, and this would take an entirely a much longer video to go into the nuances of what racism looks like in Japan. It's very different than racism here in the United States. It's very different. Now, if you want to deep dive into this, there's plenty of videos here on YouTube that talk about it in great detail with people who have not only studied this, but have actually lived in Japan and have a lived experience in racism in Japan. It's not quite the same as it is here in the United States. There's some similarities to it, but I would be doing a disservice trying to explain that here. But it is a real thing. It is something that happens, and there's been plenty of studies done on it. There's plenty of videos and content out there that talk about it. He's just going to ignore that, though. He's going to ignore that part of it, the cultural aspect of it, and then start to talk about garbage, nonsense, brain rot stuff.
There's been this response that I'm looking at right now. There's someone that quotes and says, "Stop blackwashing characters, make your own characters," saying basically others say that. And then he says, but when they make their own characters, y'all get mad.
So his point is, the point of this tweet is that this is an original character that is being made to discuss cultural and systemic issues that exist in Japan in a way that seems like they're going to do it with a lot of care and concern. This isn't replacing an OG character with someone, even though I don't have a problem with that, but that's not what's happening here. And he's saying that a lot of people get mad about this because if you're mad about this, then you're mad about talking about the subject matter. That's just it. There could be no other reason for you to be upset. Whatever that trigger is for you as a human being, whatever that is, the point is you are triggered by hearing this kind of topic brought up. And the uncomfortable nature of that is exactly why this needs to be talked about. I'm sort of breaking down the mentality of the people who push so hard back against having tough cultural conversations. But let's see where Eric takes this.
Well, that unfortunately completely misrepresents what people have been saying about this subject matter, and it
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because you're ignoring the fact that he's talking about this original character. So now you're going to use this as a jumping off point to be absolutely wrong about everything you're about to say.
totally misses the point here. That's it. It's not as nuanced as what some people may think.
It is.
It's really simple if you want to get down to the nitty gritty.
It's not. The nuanced aspect of discussions about race, gender, sexuality, those are the reason why these guys don't want to talk about nuance, is because nuance exposes bias, right? So if you start talking about the real fundamental aspects of culturally how these things happen, if you start talking about that and you get into that, it breaks down the biases and the bigotry and the prejudice that this community has. So they never want to talk about that. So it's really that simple. It's really that simple to just ignore nuance, is what he's saying here. Like, you can just do that, and then he's going to just say something that is 100% inaccurate.
Of things. Okay. There is the more blatant aspect of it all. Obviously, folks take exception to seeing these tokenizations.
Okay.
But there's another.
What is a tokenization? What is tokenization? I'm going to break it down for you, and I'm going to use examples too. A token is when you take a marginalized person, a part of a community, and you stick them in a story where they are nothing more than dressing for the story. Okay, here's an example. You have a show with all white men, and you decide you're going to throw a gay guy on the show, and that gay guy has no story whatsoever. He's like, oh, this is so and so, he's gay, and then all he does is make gay jokes the whole time. All he does there is prioritize whatever the story is for all of the straight people. And you can say the same thing about a woman being present in a show full of all men, a black person being on a show full of all white people. If their purpose there is to just uplift and represent the other characters, and they're never given anything of any substance whatsoever, that's what a token looks like in media. Okay. So I don't think there's been any character that has been mainlined, like say Miles Morales or Ms. Marvel or anything like that. I don't think there's been any mainlined character who has been able to be used in media in a big way that is representative of what an actual token in media is. Because we're talking about characters with backstories. They're the lead character of their series, whether it be a comic book, a TV show, a movie, whatever. They're the lead character. They have a lot of supporting characters around them. That eliminates the aspect of a token right there. A token could also be someone that is just being used by somebody else. For example, if Eric July were up here reinforcing white supremacy, if that's what he was doing, I'm not saying that's what he's doing in this video, but I'm saying if that's what he was doing, and then a white supremacist takes a clip from Eric July and says, hey, look, here's a black guy saying exactly what I'm saying, that would be tokenizing Eric July from an outside perspective. So it's no longer an internal thing. It would be an outside thing. Like, he's being used as a token. So those are the two ways a token can exist. None of that is going to be expressed in any of the media that these guys have ever criticized. None of that. Matter of fact, they would much rather marginalized people be tokens in media. It would make things much, much easier for them.
Other thing that we talked about as well, when these original black characters are created, if they are not, let's say, based upon some other, again, classically non-black character, oftentimes you get the heavy reliance upon these tropes in which a core part of their storyline narrative is dealing with race.
Right. Because it is a fundamental aspect of what these stories are saying, especially when they're connected to long stories where the visuals have always been white characters. That's why that happens. Now, I'm not saying that you have to necessarily support that and go out and buy those comic books because you have to, or support those movies or TV shows. You don't. But to pretend like there's something wrong at the core of it by using cultural things to lean into diversifying your story, which is exactly what would make it, follow me here, not a token. Once you start including those cultural elements, it removes it from being a token, whatever that story is. It removes that character, whoever he is, whoever she is, whoever they are. It removes them from that story and makes them no longer a token. If you insert a character of color or again, a gay character, a woman, into a story, and you ignore everything that makes them who they are on a fundamental level, and they're just there to pretend their existence is propping up the other characters, that is what a token is. Eric just doesn't understand the concept of a token.
Some sort of thing in that nature, and it's boring. Let's be completely honest. It's overused. It's predictable.
This is all subjective. This doesn't mean anything. Anybody can have an opinion that something bores them or they don't like it or whatever. This is all subjective stuff. It doesn't really add anything to the conversation about what works and what doesn't work, because he's talking about from his own personal opinion. He doesn't speak for everybody, just like I don't speak for everybody. Just because I like a movie that someone else doesn't like doesn't mean that I'm right and they're wrong. It's simply a difference of opinion. So this is all nonsense. It doesn't mean anything.
For some reason, these guys have not figured it out. A lot of people have not figured it out, especially more so in the mainstream, more front-facing.
What haven't they figured out?
They have not figured out the fact that you can create a character that just happens to be black, and they can have other things about them that are intriguing.
So how would you show? I'm very curious. How, like, if I'm gonna use a gay character as an example, because I feel like I have the most experience in that. How would you show a gay character existing in a world and remove everything from them that is gay, and they're just gay? Here's Tiger Guy, right? Tiger Guy is a gay character, but through the course of this character in comics, we never show anything about him being gay. We don't show him in a relationship, whether it be married, dating, one night stands, the friend zone shit, whatever that might be. We never show that. We never show him interacting with the gay community. We never talk about his life as a gay person existing in the world, whether it be a utopian gay world, whether it be a more realistic world where gay people are treated differently, whatever. We don't do any of that. He's just a character that is gay, and we put him in the costume, and that's all there is to him. That's like, how long could you sustain a storyline on a character, whether they're gay or a person of color or a woman or something along those lines, trans person? How long could you sustain a story ignoring things about their community? And what would be the incentive then? What would be the incentive for a person to buy that comic book if that comic book is going to ignore fundamental and core aspects of who that character is? The reason why Eric is saying this is Eric is one of these brainwashed guys, or at least he's pretending to be, where he has grown up around a certain set of normative things, and he finds everything outside of that normative bubble to be bad because that is the way he has been raised. That anything that explores something outside of the majority rules, the status quo, anything outside of that is a bad thing. That it's bad. This is why a lot of stuff in his comics don't really work. You see people reviewing them. They don't really work because we don't talk enough about who these characters are. We really don't. And you'll find a lack of soul in that. You'll find a lack of identity in that. You'll find a lack of passion in that. And that's very evident. So what happens is you have these people that don't understand what passion looks like. They don't understand what actual creative, being creative looks like. They don't understand these things because in their minds, you are making something to fill a space or fill a slot into a space that's already full of things. A lot of artists and creative people out there want to do stuff that we haven't seen before. And they're allowed to do that. They should be allowed to do that. Otherwise, it's a printing press for the same shit. It's anti-art. It's anti-creative.
And sure, that takes a lot of work. May take even years, decades even, for some of these characters to catch on. Absolutely. But this reliance upon their race and saying that they're
not relying on it. That's such a negative way to frame it. It is an additional layer to the story. It's additional to who they are. Hey, here's Spider-Man. Okay, we have the superhero. That Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Okay, that's another layer. Peter Parker is, we could say he's a student in school at this time and he's struggling with being a superhero. That's another layer. What do those struggles look like when he's dealing with other people? That's an additional layer. What are his relationship stats? Like, is he with somebody? Is he not with somebody? Does he have a crush on somebody? Who is that person? What is his relationship with his family? That's another layer. All of these are additional layers that lead into who Spider-Man is as a character. All of those things are important to that character because it allows you to have pros and cons, things that are good, things that are bad, light and dark, gray areas for these characters. This is what makes them interesting. To pretend like adding in things like race or sexuality as a talking point about a character's backstory and saying they're relying on it, that's just disingenuous. It's just a lie.
They have to deal with that aspect of it. People often reject it. So you're not necessarily creating this original character, or rather you're relying on this trope that people find off-putting.
So what I would say here is, could making a character marginalized be a trope in comic books? Yes, under certain circumstances, but you have to provide for me like specific examples of that. And we started out talking about something from like racism in Japan, and we've gotten to this point where I'm like, what are we even talking about now? Give me a specific example. What character are we talking about, and how is their storyline a trope? How are they relying on that character's race or whatever as a trope? Give me an example of that. I'm hoping he does. I haven't watched this far in the video. Maybe he'll give us an example so we'll understand what he's talking about.
All right. Now, I've obviously created several characters myself over here at the Riververse. Some happen to be black, some not. And that's one of the things that it's just not as difficult as people may make it out to be. And there are those.
How do you know that the people that created their characters don't feel the same way that you do? That's a claim. Again, these guys are masters of claims without substantiating those claims with evidence. Where is your evidence that the people who have made these other characters that you're claiming are tokens and tropes, where is the evidence that they actually did it? For that reason, you don't have that evidence. So this is why it's so frustrating with content creators like Eric, is he's just some guy talking. I get so many people in my comments defending these guys. He's just a person talking. I could be doing the same thing. I could be sitting here doing the same brain rot that he's doing and making claims without any evidence whatsoever. I could be doing that.
That are out there that love these topics constantly being I guess sought after, or rather them kind of expanding upon that because that represents their real world view. So they want the character.
And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with a writer or a creator wanting to take the real world and put it into a story? What's the issue with that? Again, it's subjective. So I'm asking that question rhetorically. Obviously, we're watching a video. He's not going to answer me here. But even in the comments, like, there's nothing wrong with telling stories that reflect the real world. Zero wrong with that. These guys want to act like that's a fundamental problem with media. And that's just ignorance.
Just to be representative of that, but on the other hand, it's not a difficult thing to do. You can make characters, and they can just be cool. I've made Salvage. I've made obviously Isom. I've made Bloodruth out there behind me. And one thing that none of them have had to deal with in their storylines is their race. It's just
because you haven't made it a plot point in your comic book. That's what I'm saying. Like, when you take a character and you introduce them into Marvel and DC or any other industry where the world is established. If racism exists in that world, and it has existed in that world, it would be a problem for these characters to exist in a world and ignore the racism. That doesn't make any sense from a writing standpoint. So when you create your own world, and in your world, Eric, you have decided you're going to ignore race, even though I don't know how, because we still don't know the full story behind this world that he's made. But if you want to ignore that in your world, that's totally okay. You made the world. You can do that. But if you were to introduce Isom into a world where racism exists and that other black superheroes have experienced racism, it would be absolutely idiotic to pretend that all of a sudden this black superhero doesn't experience any racism. That doesn't make sense from a storytelling perspective.
Thing that you can make other aspects of them, again, intriguing, compelling, and they can catch on with people of all
you
races,
could,
because what you end up running in.
Maybe they don't care about that. Maybe the people making this don't care about that. Like, if I made a story with a gay superhero and I wanted to make it because I wanted to speak to the queer audience, then I would focus on making the story for the queer audience. Maybe I don't care if anybody else buys it, and that's my prerogative. It's my prerogative. Just like a lot of people make books where they don't care if they're appealing to the mass audience. They don't give a fuck about that. And to be quite honest, it's a little weird to hear you even saying that, Because I would think you would want to appeal to the audience that feels like they've been wronged by Marvel or DC, that feels like they don't vibe with that anymore and they're looking for something else. But here you are pretending like your comic books are supposed to be for everybody. How can they be for everybody, but you're also constantly attacking people that want stories that are different from the stories that you're telling? It's an illogical thought.
If you do rely upon that so heavily upon that, you end up running into this issue where really it's only speaking to one particular demographic, and that's the demographic that finds, number one, this story.
Well, what's wrong with that, though? What is wrong with making something for specific things? What's the issue with that? You would have to prove to me that there's a harm from that. Like, what is the harm from that? Why is that something that should be looked down upon? Right? Like, I'm pretty sure that when somebody opens up a Hooters restaurant, there's a specific demographic they're thinking about when they're doing that. I'm pretty sure when somebody decides to make a gay bar, there's a specific demographic they're looking to cater to. It doesn't mean that they're excluding people. It means that in their minds, they're creating it for a specific reason. There's a specific reason for that. There's zero harm in that. You would have to prove to me that there's harm in that. And you have not provided any evidence to any claim that you've made in this video.
Sort of thing. Appealing, and that's not most people. So yes, folks are saying what they're saying right now, but don't pretend as if that other aspect of it, like again, relying on that racist trope, is some like
you have to provide evidence that that's what they're doing. And we're talking about this story from Japan. What is your evidence that that story is relying on a racist trope? What is your evidence of that? Because that's the tweet that you read at the beginning of this video.
Like, okay, well, this is original character, whether they're not based on another character, and therefore we get to do this. Oh, wait, y'all still have a problem. No. It can be done. It has been done all throughout. There's so many other people. I just brought up myself, obviously, because it's a little personal for me. But
what makes it personal for you? I'm just curious, what makes it personal for you? Is it because it's about a black character? That's interesting. I'll let you think about that for a moment.
There's plenty of other creators that have been able to do this, and they don't rely upon them. And oftentimes, those are going to be the characters that stand the test of time. But here we go. Yet again,
proof of that.
If they're confused,
I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say, to be honest. I mean, just the sheer ignorance from Eric on this topic is astounding. The amount of claims that get made with no evidence whatsoever, no proof, no examples given, just talking shit for like 4 minutes and not really saying anything of any substance. By the way, I want to point out quickly before I go here that none of this is helping Eric July's channel. His channel is still bleeding subscribers at this point. Everything that he is trying to do is not working. So anybody taking any sort of advice from him on how to grow a business, how to make art, how to do XYZ, maybe you should take a look at how things are going for him, his company, and his channel before you listen to anything that he has to say here. Just maybe.